name is Brigham Milton, and I'm doing my informative speech over verbal apraxia. Do you know anyone that had issues speaking when they were younger or could not speak at the expected age? Verbal apraxia is a speech disorder that mostly happens within childhood. Happens whenever a child's motor oral muscles don't coordinate correctly. There are early signs of verbal apraxia. Verbal apraxia has some signs where there is slower rate of speech, difficulty imitating sounds, or delayed speech. Slower rate of speech is whenever a child's syllables aren't coming out as fast as they normally should. Delayed speech is whenever a child does not speak at the expected age that they're supposed to. Whenever a child has difficulty imitating sounds, that means that whatever they hear and they try to say does not come out correctly. And this is an example of someone who has difficulty imitating sounds. Just because I can't talk doesn't mean that I don't understand. This relates because the child may not be able to respond to you the way that they should be able to, but they understand you. This is similar to how a dog is. The dog understands you, just doesn't know how to tell you it understands. And there are effects of verbal apraxia. The effects of verbal apraxia can consist of slower talking speed, having to pronounce every syllable, or slower reading speed. Having to pronounce every syllable is a common one because they are taught to speak by pronouncing each syllable. Slower reading speed comes whenever the child has issues talking because they learned how to speak properly at an older age. And slower reading speed correlates with slower talking speed because even when you're reading, you are talking. You are just talking inside of your head. And then this is just a picture of Apraxia Awareness Day because it is something that is an issue and many children are affected by it. And then there are treatment options for verbal apraxia. One of the treatment options are multisensory cueing. Multisensory cueing is the most common one because it goes by visual and auditory learning. And integral stimulation is the process at which multisensory cueing goes at. And another form of treatment is gestures. Instead of using visual and auditory learning as the process, they do gestures, and gestures are used throughout the treatment, and they get progressively harder. The last one would be phonetic statement. Phonetic statement is basically a backup for multisensory cueing whenever the child cannot learn by visual or auditory means. And this is an example of a child at an appointment with a therapist to get better at talking. So the main points of verbal apraxia are the early signs, the effects, and then the treatment options of it. And verbal apraxia is easy to treat. It just takes determination from the child and encouragement from the parents. And that's why we're excited.